A heartbroken young woman calls in America's most wanted tip line worker. They just aired a program about two unidentified murder victims, both young ladies in their late teens or early 20s whose cases went cold. The first victim was found in 1985 off a rural Placer County road, almost charred beyond recognition. She had duct tape on her mouth and wrists. She had a large knife-like back wound. Police suspected she had an infant who was missing and in danger after finding some of her items and diapers surrounding her remains. An autopsy would show she was alive when burned. She wasn't identified by authorities and didn't match any missing people. Another victim, found a year later, was hog-tied, packed into a huge popcorn cup box, and dumped in Marta's Creek Lake near Truckee, California. Her decomposing remains prevented identification of her cause of death. Her remains were only identified by her chipped front teeth. This young woman's case also became cold since no one reported her missing. Terry Knorr, the tip phone caller, introduces herself. Her awful brutality narrative has gone unbelieved for years. The operator learns that Susan and Sheila, her older sisters, were slain. Their mother, Teresa Knorr, killed them, she alleges. Terry ran away at 15 from home. Living on the streets with mental illness and addiction, she often broke the law. She told cops about her childhood horror movie every time she was arrested. She told them her mother was a monster who tortured and killed two of her children. Neither her therapist nor anyone else believed her, until the Placer County Sheriff's Department identified many of Terry's details as evidence of their unsolved Jane Doe. Nevada County Sheriff's Department acknowledged the tale. Finally, someone believed her. Teresa Cross was always deceitful and domineering. She quit school at 16 to marry Clifford Sanders. Howard, her first child, was born while they were married. She was jealous and controlling, accusing Clifford of adultery. Clifford punched her during one of their fights. On July 6, 1964, they argued again. Clifford left Teresa, pregnant with Sheila. As he left, she shot him in the back with a .30.30 rifle. He died from the slug in his heart. Teresa denied guilt, citing self-defense. It worked, she was not guilty. As a single mother of two, Teresa drank more. She started several relationships. She had 4 additional children with Marine Robert Knorr, Susan, Robert, William, and Terry. Robert adopted Howard and Sheila, who became Knorrs. Teresa's drinking, jealousy, and infidelity accusations drove her husband away again. He left in 1969 and divorced in 1970. Robert requested communication with his children, but Teresa refused. She married twice more, but drinking and jealousy ended both. Her mental and physical health declined after her last divorce. Her weight gain caused paranoid illusions. She pulled the kids out of school, canceled their phone service, and forbade them from going outside. Teresa, always domineering, became furious and unpredictable. She accused her children of false crimes and thrashed them. According to her children, she beat them with the Board of Education, a 3-foot-long, 1.5-thick board with electrical tape wrapped around one end for a handle. Other children would hold their sibling down while Teresa beat them. Her abuse went beyond beatings. She burned her children with cigarettes, made them work in the heat, deprived them of sleep, and threw knives at them as a game. She confined Terry in a chest freezer for allegedly saying Teresa didn't care for her kids. Her girls suffered the most from her rage and abuse. She forced Susan and Sheila, the oldest, into prostitution. She believed Susan was a witch who had made her acquire weight to make Susan gain weight. Teresa beat and force-fed her. Teresa would make big pans of macaroni and cheese with grease and push Susan to eat it all. Teresa would press spoonfuls into Susan's mouth if she was full. If Susan vomited, Teresa would make her eat it. Different sources describe what happened next. Some say Susan fled. Others say she was arrested on the street. She ultimately reported her mother's abuse to authorities, which is crucial. Naturally, Teresa denied. Caseworkers questioned the other youngsters with their mothers present. The children, terrified, supported their mother and denied she hit them. DHS concluded the case and returned Susan to her mother. Susan's previous hell was nothing compared to her future hell. Teresa gagged and shackled her under the dining table. Teresa battered and force-fed her. She engaged her sons, Robert and William, in beating Susan. Howard departed earlier. Approximately 2 years passed. Different accounts describe what happened next. Robert says Teresa gave Terry, a little child, a pistol and told her to hold it on Susan. While she went into another room, Terry was surprised and shot Susan in the abdomen. Terry claims her mother shot Susan in an argument. Susan was critically ill. Teresa had the boys bring their sister into the bathroom and put her in the tub instead of calling an ambulance. Teresa shackled her to the soap dish. Teresa rejuvenated Susan over 2 weeks. Susan returned under the table after getting out of the tub. She pleaded with her mother to let her go, vowing not to tell anyone. It took a while, but Teresa caved. However, Susan had to let her mother remove the bullets so she could not use it against her later. Susan agreed, desperate to flee. Teresa gave her daughter antipsychotics and liquor till she passed out on the kitchen floor. Teresa used an X-Acto knife to cover daughter's back and removed the bullet with Terry as surgeon's assistant. Teresa flushed the bullet down the toilet after surgery, but Susan never recovered. She woke up in agony. Teresa gave her antibiotics and ibuprofen. Susan fell into a coma from infection and pain-induced delusions. Teresa claimed Susan was just faking it, leaving her on the kitchen floor and telling her other children to step over her comatose corpse. Teresa diapered Susan when she lost bladder control. Teresa claimed Susan was possessed by a demon when her body turned yellow from infection and jaundice. She believed fire was the only way to exorcise the evil. Teresa shackled Susan's hands and covered her lips with duct tape. She told her boys to put Susan, her diapers, and her few items in the trunk. They drove to a remote region and moved Susan and her belongings off the road. Teresa commanded her sons to gas everything, even their sister. Susan's body burned behind them as she had William light a match and drive away. With Susan gone, Teresa raged at Sheila. Sheila was force-fed by Teresa, like Susan. Sheila's 2 front teeth were chipped as she forced a spoon into her mouth. Teresa then accused Sheila of spreading venereal disease through the toilet seat. As with Susan, she battered and handcuffed Sheila under the table. Sheila couldn't use the toilet or bathtub. Teresa beaten Sheila, demanding she confess to giving her mother venereal disease. Teresa had her kid bound and stuffed in a broom closet after that failed. She abandoned her for weeks without food or drink. Teresa would crank up the TV to drown out Sheila's screams for release. Before Terry could smuggle her sister water, her mother came home. Delusional Sheila talked about mounting a lamp. She stopped talking. A thunderous thump from the closet was their last sound. Days later, the closet smelled rotten. After Teresa opened the closet door, Sheila's corpse tumbled out. Teresa enlisted her boys to dispose of it. Robert brought his theater's popcorn cup box, the largest he could locate. They covered Sheila's remains in bedlines, tucked her in the box, and put her in the trunk. Terry was told to clean her sister's death closet. As with Susan, Teresa and her sons drove to a remote location to dump and burn Sheila's remains. A police officer arrived behind them before they could dump the package. Teresa avoided suspicion by saying her boys needed the bathroom. Although she smelled decay, the police officer instructed her to move ahead. They drove to Martis Creek Lake and dumped Sheila's remains box. They left before setting it on fire to avoid being caught. The police were shocked by Terry's memories. She detailed cruelty they couldn't conceive. But her details matched the crime scenes too well to ignore. They answered investigators' tough questions, such why diapers were near Placer County Jane Doe, and what caused her back gash. William, Robert, and Teresa Knorr were arrested in November 1993 for shooting and killing a bartender 2 years previously in a robbery. Robert was easily discovered in Nevada prison. William lived and worked in Woodland, California. However, Teresa was difficult to catch. She moved to Salt Lake City and cared for an old woman under her maiden name. She'd had just withdrew $4,000 from her bank account and told her boss she was leaving town when police apprehended her. She was arrested with her luggage packed. For in his testimony, Robert was acquitted of all charges save accessory after the fact. Pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 3 years concurrently with his previous term. William received probation and therapy for his testimony. Teresa Knorr was charged with 2 murders, 2 conspiracy charges, and 2 exceptional circumstances charges multiple murder and murder by torture. After learning of her son's plea deals to testify against her, she pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. She received 2 life sentences on October 17, 1995. California Institution for Women in Chino is where she is serving her term. She can apply for parole at 81 in 2027. Robert was freed in 2013 after serving time. William works, has a family, and enjoys a normal life. He told his experience on Evil Lives here in 2019. After her mother's arrest, Terry appeared on many true crime series, including Cold Case Files, until her 2011 heart failure death. She was 41. Subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. See you in the next video.